Narcissism. It's a word thrown around a lot these days, but what does it really mean? We're not talking about someone who enjoys a good selfie. We're talking about a whole personality built around one central theme, me. Think of it like this. Imagine a sun, bright, powerful, everything revolves around it. That's the narcissist. You're a planet in their orbit, important only in how you relate to them. It's tempting to think narcissists are deeply self-confident. The reality? Often the opposite. This intense focus on themselves comes from a well of insecurity so deep it needs constant attention and praise to stay afloat. So do narcissists think about you? Let's just say the way they think is less about you as an individual and more about what you can do for them. In today's digital age, social media has become a playground for narcissists. The constant need for validation is fed by likes, comments, and shares. But this validation is fleeting, leading to a never-ending cycle of seeking more. It's a double-edged sword, offering both a platform for self-expression and a trap for self-obsession. Narcissists often have a distorted view of their past, seeing themselves as the hero in every story. They rewrite history to fit their narrative, often at the expense of others. Relationships with narcissists can be draining, as they demand constant attention and admiration. It's important to set boundaries and recognize the signs early on. Understanding narcissism is the first step in protecting yourself from its allure and terror. Remember, it's not about changing them, but about understanding and protecting yourself. Knowledge is power, and with it, you can navigate the complex world of narcissism with confidence. Embrace your own journey and let the sun shine on you, not just around you. Let me introduce you to Daniel. Daniel is the kind of guy who walks into a room and expects everyone to notice. He's charming, successful, and always has a story to tell, usually about himself, naturally. Daniel collects people like trophies. He loves being surrounded by those who admire his wit, his style, his undeniable charisma. He's the life of the party until he's not. You see, Daniel's attention span for people is about as long as a goldfish's. Once you're no longer feeding his ego, you become as interesting as last week's news. And trust me, no one wants to be last week's news in Daniel's world. Here's the thing about being in a narcissist's life. You're always playing a supporting role in the grand play that is their existence. It's like being cast in a never-ending drama where the script is constantly rewritten to suit their whims and desires. They're the star, the director, the playwright, and the critic all rolled into one. Every scene revolves around them. Every plot twist is designed to highlight their brilliance, and every other character is merely a prop to enhance their performance. They might think about you, sure, but it's always through the lens of how you serve their needs, your feelings, your aspirations, your individuality. All of it is secondary to their grand narrative. Do you make them look good? Do you play your part in their story without causing any disruptions? Do you provide them with admiration, attention, or resources? Your role is to be the ever-supportive audience, the one who claps the loudest, who never questions the script. Congratulations, you're in their good graces for now. But remember, this is a precarious position. The moment you falter, the moment you forget your lines or step out of character, the consequences can be severe. But step out of line, question their motives, or, God forbid, outshine them in any way, and you'll see that charming mask slip. The facade of benevolence and charm will crumble, revealing the true nature beneath. Rejection, anger, even cruelty can rear their ugly heads. The once adoring star of the show can quickly become the harshest critic, the most unforgiving director. It's all part of keeping their fragile ego safe. They construct this elaborate play to shield themselves from any perceived threat, to maintain the illusion of their own perfection. And in this play, everyone else is expendable, replaceable, and ultimately just a means to an end. Section 4. The charity case of Caroline and the missing millions. Caroline was a delight, kind, generous, always willing to help. She was the heart and soul of every charity event she attended, always going the extra mile to ensure everyone felt cared for and valued. She also happened to be married to Robert, a man whose narcissism was only outweighed by his bank account. Robert was the kind of man who thrived on attention and admiration. Robert loved to donate to charities. As long as his name was plastered on the building afterwards, he craved recognition. and would go to great lengths to ensure his contributions were noticed. He'd regale anyone who'd listen about his generosity, his empathy, his deep desire to give back. He'd host grand events, making sure to highlight his role as a benefactor, basking in the applause and admiration of the crowd. What he wouldn't mention, that most of the donated money came from Caroline's trust fund, which he'd slowly been draining while showering her with compliments and the occasional lavish gift. He was a master of manipulation, making her feel special while quietly siphoning off her wealth. See, in Robert's mind, Caroline's money was as good as his. He saw it as a resource to be exploited, a means to bolster his own image and status. He was entitled to it, after all, because he was Robert, and Robert deserved the best. His sense of entitlement knew no bounds, and he believed that everything Caroline had was rightfully his. Her feelings on the matter? Irrelevant. Caroline's emotions and opinions were mere obstacles in Robert's grand plan. She often felt neglected and unappreciated, her kindness taken for granted. Despite her growing sadness, Caroline continued to give, hoping that her generosity would eventually be recognized for what it truly was, an act of love and compassion, not a tool for someone else's gain. But as the financial discrepancies became too glaring to ignore, Caroline began to see the truth. She realized that her trust fund was dwindling, and the man she thought she knew was not who he appeared to be. Determined to take control of her own destiny, Caroline decided to confront Robert and reclaim her financial independence. It was time for her to stand up for herself and ensure that her generosity was no longer exploited. With newfound strength, Caroline continued her charitable work, but this time on her own terms. She became a beacon of hope and inspiration, showing that true generosity comes from the heart, not from a desire for recognition. Section 5. Mirrored reflections, seeing only what they want. Narcissists often struggle with empathy. It's not that they're incapable of understanding emotions. It's more that they choose not to. Why bother with your messy feelings when they have their own grand performance to orchestrate? They see the world through a distorted mirror, one that reflects back only the image they want to see. Your pain, your joy, your needs. They're all filtered through this lens of self-obsession. And the truly dangerous part, their distorted reality can be incredibly convincing. They believe their own hype, which makes it all the easier to draw others into their web of manipulation. Section 6. A world built on shifting sands. Imagine building a house on sand. It might look impressive for a while, but the foundation is unstable, always at risk of crumbling. That's the narcissist's world. Their sense of self-worth is so fragile, so dependent on external validation, that any perceived threat can send them spiraling. A critical comment, a perceived slight, even a mild disagreement can trigger a disproportionate reaction. This constant need for affirmation can be exhausting for those around them. It's like walking on eggshells, never knowing what might set them off. Section 7. Escaping the orbit, your life, your spotlight. Here's the good news. You are not obligated to stay in anyone's orbit, especially not one as chaotic and draining as a narcissist's. Breaking free can be difficult. They're often masters of manipulation, able to twist your emotions and make you doubt your own perceptions. But it is possible. Remember, your worth is not defined by how a narcissist sees you. You are worthy of love, respect, and genuine connection. Don't let anyone, narcissist or otherwise, dim your light. It's time to step out of the shadows and reclaim your own spotlight.